Welcome, season's greetings to another episode.
It's been natural.
It is supposed to be natural. I get that. However, I'm an academic. I don't care for this level of technical precision that we have going on here, but I do need a beginning, middle, and an end. Today's format, we are sitting and discussing whatever, comes up. More natural format. To him, this kills the naturalness of the format.
It does, because I'm like, we were having such an organic conversation earlier about living forever, and my wife does this thing where she turns into like presenter Dina when she's in front of the camera.
I turn into presenter Dina even when I'm not in front of a camera.
Lies.
And the thoughts came from this book that I decided to read this morning, Homo Deus. I read Sapiens this summer and it was a magnificent book. But I'm at the part where he's talking about the potential future agendas and he's talking about humans wanting to escape death. And to me, that is a wild concept. Like, why would I want to live forever? But then I posted it on my WhatsApp. One of my friends responded that that's a goal. And I was like, but why? Why would somebody want to live forever? So it's like, if you're already struggling as is, why would I want to do this for more years? So the author of the book was like, maybe realistically we won't live forever. We'll just be able to double our life expectancy from 70 to 80 years to 150 to 60 years. And I'm like,
that's a good thing.
That sounds so unappealing.
It depends on how you look at it. For me, who likes to learn stuff and to experiment with various things, having more time to just experiment and gain more knowledge seems like fun.
Okay, but my thing about it was because recently, some of my friends have been dealing with death in their family, and he said something that really made me realize what I was noticing. Is he said that as human beings now, we see death as a technical issue. It's not inevitable, it's not due to the gods, it's not the natural course of things. Everything is a technical issue. Whether it's even a natural disaster, the early warning systems weren't good enough, the building codes weren't strong enough, we didn't plan for this. We believe that we can forecast and control just about everything. Even if it's a war, it's a technical issue. The United Nations or the people responsible for the geopolitics going to do a good issue. Even if it's cancer, we didn't get we didn't note it in time. There was not enough early prevention. Humans see their death as a technical issue. And he was saying only people who believe in a higher power or some other force are the ones who don't view it that way. And he was saying how much of religion depended on death, which was an interesting point, because we spent a lot of our lives doing things in this life to deal with the afterlife. Now, I don't believe in the afterlife. I would very much like to just not exist. But a lot of religion is in place because death exists. I don't know.
I believe in the fact that it is a technical issue. There are many ways to prevent death, and the mortality rates, for example, infants and babies was very low back in the day. So I don't see an issue with humans seeing it as a technical issue. All creatures, to me, try to survive. It's just that us human beings have the means and the intelligence to avert death for as long as possible, which aligns with nature. So to me, I can say it in a spiritual sense as well. I'm very accepting if I do pass, but to me, it's still a technical issue. both coexist in my mind. There is no like I'm angry that someone died. I can see the spiritual benefit of death. Um, in the TV series The Sandman, they call it the Sunless Lands. Like we see birth as a gift, but we don't see death as a gift as well. We see it as a tragedy. To me, they're both are gifts to us. We didn't well, depend on what you believe in. Depend on what you believe in, we didn't choose our birth. Some beliefs think we do choose our birth and our parents. That's a whole nother topic. But I still think that it is something that we don't readily or understand the choice of death and the choice of birth.
I don't know. I think trying to live forever is absolute madness. And I know it sounds weird coming from me, who's somebody who seeks knowledge and seeks insight. And obviously, if I were to live forever, I would have infinite amount of time to learn, grow, and develop. But life's a lot. I mean, even controlling for variables like health. If I were, immortal and I stop at this body and this age, and I know for sure I won't die of like, other diseases, I still wouldn't want to live forever. I think that the biggest struggle for me being human is mental. And to mentally exist in a world that is this chaotic, it just is not worth it. Like
I
I
think
don't
that would
want
be your own ego. Because if you were beings that live for like centuries or like millennia, there would be a point where we would have to reach a point of spiritual enlightenment where because I think for someone who lives really long, they would have to be able to detach from worldly egoic desires or like worry. Like their mental would probably become stronger if they did the work. If they didn't, of course, it would be lifelong torture. But if you actually took time to develop a strong spiritual foundation and a great mental foundation, then you would technically be like a sage on a mountain, and the pain of the world, you would be so like deep in your peace. You can enjoy life without all of the waves that comes with desires.
I agree it is my ego that makes living hard or difficult, or watching people suffer or make mistakes or destroy their environment. Like I don't really want to witness it. Like to me, what makes this somewhat enjoyable, it is that is extremely temporary. Like I am looking forward. And that's the thing, I'm not suicidal in any form or fashion. I'm just like, I look forward to dying. I truly do look forward to being 80 years old in a casket. And I don't know, to me, I like to see the beauty in everything. And I feel like if I live forever, I take away some parts of what make life good for me. Like, if I have seen everything there is to see, I've discovered everything there is. I know that like it's infinite to some extent, but I personally like ignorance is bliss in a weird way. I like knowing that I don't know, or knowing that I haven't seen, or knowing that I don't understand. And if I were to live for too long, it starts to pull away at the mystery and then make the existence not as exciting.
I think in this conversation, I would much prefer if, yes, people age, but not to the point where they become debilitated. So, like, we call it debilitated.
Debilitated.
But I said it right the first time, didn't I?
Yeah.
Okay. So, I don't have an issue of aging. It's just reaching to the point where I can't do stuff for myself anymore or become like too weak to even bathe myself. I want to be healthy in my old age. And I think what I'm trying to say with this line of thought is it would be a beautiful thing if we can live in a very healthy way for a long time and then decide when we are tired and just close our eyes and just automatically die.
Okay, but in the book, I know I haven't gone that far in it, but he was talking about a potential future where humans go to the doctor for like replacements or like upgrades. Like you would replace your eyes, your arms, your skin. Like you would treat yourself almost like a machine that just has to upgrade its parts in order to maintain the longevity. I think the biggest thing against that is one, figuring out how to do that, fear on a physical level, but the brain is the tricky part. Like consciousness can't necessarily be replicated that easily. So, but the thought of going somewhere to replace my eyes. And you know what's crazy is that, like, in the book he gave examples of actual institutions that are like, this is their entire mission. This is the entire reason why they exist, to almost defeat death. And I don't know.
I'm not against death.
I
Death to me is a gift, just like birth. You'll reach a point where you just feel really tired of existing and you just want to close your eyes and just slumber. But I do like the idea of being able to live without suffering. I know suffering is necessary, but if you have
you mean physical suffering?
Yes.
Okay.
So I know like terminal illnesses, for example, can be very painful to live with. If you can replace certain parts of yourself, that will make life easier until you die. I agree with that.
I don't know. Like the thoughts around death as an entity has been something that I've been like thinking about for a minute, because I can't remember which book I was reading. I think it was a book about like indigenous communities or tribes. And I think in our modern society we have a really bad relationship with death.
We do.
It feels like something has been taken from us, like something has been stolen, like it's unfair, which is crazy because the only thing you have to do in life is die. Like the minute you are born, you know that the only must is that you must cease to exist. Like to me, it's a fundamental law of like life and nature, and not just for humans, for everything. With life comes death. But somehow we're very excited about the first part and have this really toxic relationship with the second part.
I think that's a whole other discussion about humans being uncomfortable with the dark side of anything, especially life and human nature. We want everything to be light. We want everything to be airy-fairy. But anything that's considered uncomfortable, we want to put in a corner and not talk about it. And then that leads to us doing some weird shit in the darkness.
I'll get back to his point about the dark side, but I remember reading something and they were like, for us in the modern day, we kind of associate death with illness. We associate it with something that happens after like you're unwell or you're sick or something like that. And they were giving stories of other communities where death isn't associated with illness, it's just an end. So like your grandmother may be perfectly fine and then she's like, tomorrow's the day, and she just is like, I'm going to go tomorrow. And it's everybody does the preparations, they say goodbye, they kiss goodbye, and then in the morning she's gone. Like it's as simple as that. Like right now we fight death so much that the thought of just choosing when to exit just is such a foreign concept. Like I know like he has a family member that's really old. And she doesn't even like the concept of death. She's in her 90s. And I'm like, if you're this old, why are you this uncomfortable with something that will find you in less than 10 years? Like, it's coming, but I don't know. Like, to me, I don't know. I think my spiritual beliefs inform my views on death because I believe we're part of one universal energy, and everybody else's life is my life. Like I think life is life, and I as an individual, as an entity, don't need to be I don't need to survive once life survives. So to me, I'm just a manifestation of universal consciousness to, and I mean that language can sound really airy fairy, but I just essentially believe that all life comes from one source, and the trees, the birds, humans, like our entire world is just manifestations of one thing. Yes, I talk with my hands. I talk with my hands. So I don't know. I don't know. I To me, it's all one thing, just living and experiencing different iterations of our different circumstances and seeing what circumstances lead to what nature and nurture leads to what result. um and because I think I view myself as part of like a bigger source, a bigger purpose, a bigger mission, me, the individual surviving for this long isn't really necessary for me.
True. Also, I don't really believe that consciousness is just a brain function. Um, Consciousness is in everything. And the fact that we're afraid of death, it's not like we're afraid of death itself. We're afraid of losing our ego itself. This identity that we have. Like, I'm Shaquille O'Neal Hakeem Hinds, my name, my memories, all of these things are just part of a small little phase for me, but that's not who I am. The consciousness of this universe is not a singular identity. It's more of an awareness of itself and of existence. So what we're afraid of is, for example, people think of heaven, they think they're going to take their ego itself to heaven. They're going to take their identity to heaven. But the concept of heaven, from my personal understanding and belief of it, is that you're not taking necessarily your life that you have here, that you're just taking your soul, which doesn't necessarily have to be your identity in this world, because that identity is just pure suffering for most people. Imagine taking all of your pain, all your dark memories, all of your judgments to a place that's supposed to be evidently perfect. It doesn't make any sense. So,
I mean, fair. The concept of heaven is a difficult one. I would not like to partake in that concept. I don't like the concept, but I know billions of people on this earth believe in that ideal or identity. But the concept of your ego, I agree with. Me as an individual or me as an identity doesn't necessarily need to go on. But what was interesting in here is that he talked about how death informs a lot of how we live life, about wanting a legacy or wanting to live on or wanting to, like we do everything, or a lot of people do everything in this life to make sure that their name, their egoic presence is still remembered. Like how we think about the greats, whether it be prophets like Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad, whether it be actresses like, what's the blonde haired one now? Marilyn Monroe, or like, the Kennedys, or like how we think about companies like the West India or Dutch West India Company. Like we do so much of our life in order to make sure that some form of us persists after we die. And it's only because we know we die that we take these actions. So like he had this excerpt in the book where he was, I think he's a comedian that was named like Alan Woody or something. And they were like, somebody from the audience and asked him like, do you want your name to live on after you die? Because he was a celebrity. And he was like, no, I would prefer to just live on and not my name, but I would prefer to live in my apartment, I think is what he said. I would just prefer to live, but I don't have that choice. So, then we go on to concepts of legacy. And is Mike Tyson? Mike Tyson was doing that boxing match with a white dude on YouTube. Can't remember his name. And he told like one of the kid interviewers, like, legacy is madness. And something along those lines.
What type of legacy would you like to leave behind when it's all said and done?
Well, I don't know. I don't believe in the word legacy. I just think that's another word for ego.
And I was like, I agree. Like, why are we doing so much to make sure that we won't be forgotten? Like, no matter how much you fight, you will be forgotten. I don't know who lived in 1600. I have no clue who them people were. Like,
And I'm pretty sure, like, for example, the Roman Emperor Caesar, he doesn't know that we still remember him, nor does he care. Like, his identity, existence is gone. So the fact that you want to be remembered, you can't enjoy the fruits of that either way. When you die, you're gone. So
yeah. I think the discomfort with death is just the discomfort with non-existence, and the discomfort with temporariness and how temporary, like, everything is. Humans for a long time have been seeking permanence in every form or fashion. We want the houses to be permanent. Like, we just want everything to exist for a really long time.
Change is what we don't have peace with, which is the most constant thing in this universe, besides death.
We do end up in these deeply philosophical debates often. I'll try to find the clips, like the clip from Mike Tyson. But yeah, I like philosophy because it helps me to really frame my existence and really frame what I do with my life.
Which is probably why we would be spiritually closer to Buddhists, because Buddhism is a philosophy. It's not a religion. It's not like you're putting all of your faith into one particular figure to save your mortal soul. You're thinking about the actuality that your life is actually suffering and what causes that suffering and how to alleviate that suffering for the benefit of yourself and your surroundings. Whereas if you follow religion, you technically just have to believe in something to be considered saved, but you don't really care about what happens to the world or the people around you. Like, that's inconsequential because heaven, the ultimate goal, is all that matters. Like your afterlife. And that's the thing. We are so uncomfortable with death that we have to have an afterlife to make death palatable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I do have a lot of Christian friends, and I do remember multiple have asked me about, like, are you concerned about the afterlife or what happens to your soul when you die? And I'm like, no offense, respectfully, I truly want that when I die, there is nothing coming after it. I want to just decompose, be eaten by maggots, let my flesh go where it needs to go, and may my consciousness go back into the pile that it goes into, and may fresh new babies be born again. I truly don't. And you know what? This has been a debate that I've had for a long time, and it's been something I would like talk to my mother about. But even when I was younger, I didn't believe in the concept of hell. And I didn't think hell was fair. This was like, I didn't think hell was fair. Because my argument as a child was, if God is omnipresent, omnipotent, and all the things, people end up who they are because of where they're born, who their parents are. And technically, the gods had to be in control of all of that. So then why are you punishing me for things that were beyond my control? Since then, my framework has evolved. Can I say it succinctly? Probably not. But I think the concept still stands, and it still ties into my ideas of life. It's just I like to put natural laws as the foundation of my mental framework, because that gives me more comfort instead of putting my framework into mental structures.
But I feel like that's the concept of us as a human beings. We choose our beliefs based on what will make us feel more comfortable. I'm not necessarily
And I agree. I think you should choose your beliefs based on what makes you most comfortable, because I think everybody needs a spiritual foundation. So feel free to disagree with me, but please believe in something. I don't care what it is, but something healthy. Thanks.
So for me, I was kind of raised kind of Christian. Like I was raised in Barbados, which is like a Christian society. So you'll have that influence. So even though I can be more philosophical and I can understand things on a deeper level and I can find my own spiritual roots, when I'm sick or when I'm in great discomfort, that core Christianity is so deep within me because of where I was raised. That's what I technically fall back on if I'm like in distress. So if I'm really sick and like when I had COVID, I'd be like, oh my God, oh Jesus, help me. Those are the things that were ingrained in me. So that's my deep core comfort. My ultra comfort, the ones that I developed through understanding the world and looking into different types of religions and spiritualities, is a lot more different than that. But I'm at peace with that. I'm at peace that I don't really necessarily believe in heaven or hell or the devil, but I understand that when I am in my down and my dumps, I will still listen to the gospel. I will still reach out to a figure that I don't necessarily believe was, I would say not man-made. Because to me, that's what the biblical God is, very much man-made. He's jealous, he's angry, he supports slavery. Like the biblical God is a vicious God to believe in. I don't care what your beliefs is. There are many other friendlier gods in other types of mythos, I would call it. But that's what I will fall back on if I'm in my down and dust, because that's my childhood comfort. That was what was taught to me. And that's okay.
I think it's interesting because it's been a minute since I've ended up listening to gospel when I'm in difficulty. I can't remember the last time I did it actually, because it's so ingrained in you. And that's what I've over the years developed so many complicated philosophies. I think I had one philosophy at one point where technically to me sin was going against what was comfortable or natural for you. Where I again, weird concept, but it was like if you were raised in a certain framework and at your core you believe this framework is good, you put yourself in a lot of mental turmoil and suffering when you try to go against that. I don't really adopt that anymore, but yeah, like if people hear me talk, they would get confused because they know I'm non-religious and they know I'm spiritual, but I still use a lot of Christian terminology like the Lord, Jesus. I still know a lot of excerpts from the Bible. I've read certain parts of the New Testament. So when I'm speaking to my Christian friends, I can change my language to reflect their belief system to better be able to communicate what I'm trying to say. So it's like, and I'm aware of this because my family on my father's side was very religious. So then I went to church sometimes and I was able to understand the culture. So then I'm able to communicate that way. And again, it would be at the core, like, I live in a deeply devout and Christian society. And I too, especially when I was an undergrad, would end up listening to gospel or listening to Christian things and having Bible quotes as the things that would anchor me through difficult times. Wow, I haven't done that in a long time though. I mean, I still say the quotes, but I don't fight with am I Christian or am I not Christian anymore? How I used to when I was younger, because I was like, am I doing something wrong by not being Christian? But my Christian friends get very confused, but I always tell them, like, I don't believe that Christ is my last Lord and Savior. So because I don't believe that, I'm not Christian. It doesn't matter if you believe in God. Christianity is founded on the basis that you believe Jesus is your Lord and Savior and believe in him will save you from, that concept. I don't believe in that concept, but I don't necessarily think that any of it is false or wrong or anything like that. I think some parts are pretty cool. It's just not the philosophy by which I live my life. So I don't know how this turned into a religious debate.
Because when you're talking about death, you can't help but lean into the things that people believe in to support their own philosophy on death, which usually comes back to religion. A lot of people are afraid of the concept of hell. I feel like a lot of people are Christians simply because they're afraid of the concept of hell. Like, if I don't believe in this, I will spend an eternity suffering. Oh my God, that's the worst. I have to believe in this, which is, again, comfort. You're comforting yourself into believing something, which is okay. But I feel because we're people who like to think a lot and analyze life as it is, that explanation doesn't really push us towards being a deep, devout Christian. It's like eternal suffering, someone who tempts me to do bad things. I don't necessarily believe that human nature is just the devil tempting them to do bad things.
I mean, fair. And one thing I think you had said was somebody had said recently, like, why are human beings the only people that go against nature? And the person responded by saying,
Okay, so cats will eat their own babies when they get sick. Ducks will eat each other if they get bored enough. Penguins will fuck the dead bodies of other penguins. Otters also fuck dead bodies, but not of the same species. Prosthesis monkeys will wiggle their dicks at each other because they think it's funny. And a dolphin will commit literally any crime that you can think of without hesitation.
all the bad things that other animals or creatures do, like spiders killing their mates or dolphins raping people. But then my thing is, if human beings or creatures who are alive do it, it is nature. Why do we assume that nature is only good? So I think the whole argument of life and death comes down to arguments about good and bad, and a belief that only good should persist, whereas bad things should not exist, which I guess we've come back to your original point of like discomfort with the bad parts of life. But my personal philosophy is that you need both, you need balance, and good cannot exist without bad. And I based a lot of my philosophies based on nature. In order for there to be life, there must be death. You cannot exist as a human being if something does not die for you to live. Let me say that again. You cannot live as a human being if something else does not die. That is just how energy works. That is just how sustenance works. That's just something had to die for you to be here. Like, what did I have for breakfast? Chicken and rice. And I think people only count animals as beings, but plants are creatures too. And I had to eat quite a lot of them in my morning coffee, in the chicken that sacrificed its life for me to have breakfast, in the rice patties and all of the nutrients and creatures that go into the soil in order to make it nutritious, in order to grow grains. You can't exist if something else doesn't die.
Even all like now, you are technically dying. Your cells inside your body are just replenishing and dying. Everything you do is surrounded by death. We're surrounded by molds, by bacteria.
Yeah.
All of these things are technically living, but they're dying at a very frequent rate. It's just that we human beings have a longer lifespan. And we have this awareness of the death, but from a very, I'm a separate entity from the world. And that's just your ego.
And I think we've sanitized death too much. I think when I was younger, we were reading a book by Thich Nhat Hanh. He's died now, but he was like a Buddhist monk. Was he a monk? The point being, he wrote a lot of books. And in one of the books that I read, one of his meditation exercises to ground yourself was to meditate on death, was to envision a body in a casket with, to visualize it, because we have made it something that we sweep under the rug. Like, we don't interact with death, even though everybody dies. And it's a really interesting dilemma we've put ourselves in. And that's why there's so much discomfort, around the concept. So, and I think for the time I read that meditation and I actually tried doing it, to me, it put a lot of things into perspective, and it helped with the aversion towards this thing, or this thing that's a fact that we're just so uncomfortable with. On another episode, we should talk about suicide, which would definitely not be good for the algorithm. But I think it's
Can you even say
interesting.
suicide?
Probably not. We will beep it out. But it's an interesting thing because often in this book and the other book you said before, more people die from suicide than from war, from plagues, from anything in the modern day. More people die from suicide and overeating than terrorism, from violent crimes, from anything. Our life has gotten to the point where the main driver of our death is ourselves. And I think
That's
that
not
is
technical.
something. Yes, all death is technical at this point.
Okay.
But our existence has gotten to a point where we just see ourselves out. And, it could be because we just live for too long nowadays. Like, technically, we live to, like, what, 80 something before we live to, like, 40? But, yeah, now we just see ourselves
if
out.
you believe in the Bible, people live for hundreds of years. So,
Fair. What did we do to shorten our lifespan biblically?
something with sin, how God is very judgmental. So, like, you should live long. If you were, like, against God, you'll be slaved. And if you're with God, you would be given slaves and you will live longer. So,
okay. Yeah. It's a lot. But I enjoy thinking about it. I mean, I don't really know what philosophy is right or which ones are wrong. I just know which ones bring me more comfort and which ones give me anxiety. So that is how I have formulated my system. But death is an interesting concept for sure.
Yeah, I think for us, we're trying to live this life with as little suffering as we can. So every year we're trying to be better people. We're trying to live a more healthy life, trying to find a bit more peace. For us, the essence of, well, I guess our spiritual belief is just technically being able to grow and be at peace. To us, it's just that simple. And once you have that mindset of growth and peace, even if you're in a religion, you will still work on yourself. So,
what would you do if you could live to 200?
200 is a bit short. Let's say 400.
400.
I guess I would learn a lot more stuff. I think I'm interested in scientific things, so maybe I would pursue physics in one generation and then chemistry in the next. But I think I'll just want to gain more information and also travel and see more of the world, understand myself more, understand the world more, understand people more. But yeah, what about you?
I think I would be an adrenaline junkie. If I knew that I couldn't die, like, for example, if it was set up where, like, I had an expiry date and nothing could kill me until that day, 200, 300 years from now, I would probably be an adrenaline junkie. I would probably be jumping out of planes or...
Still feel pain, babe.
That's fine. That's fine. I don't mind the pain. I think I would be more of a thrill seeker, and I would probably be a lot more hedonistic. I would probably try every drug, have way too much sex, I would join the most, but it would be physical most experiences. So I think, yeah, the drive for physical exploration, I would climb some mountains. I would go to the depths of the ocean. Hopefully, don't kill myself in the process. But yeah, I think I would physically do more exploring than I do now because I am a mere mortal and I don't have 9
Let me
lives.
tell you now, if I had to go to the depths of the ocean and I couldn't die, that would be scarier than actually dying. Imagine being trapped under tons of water and you cannot move for like not thousands, but a long, long, long time. That's horrifying. I'd rather die.
I want to see. I'm curious. I want to see. So yeah, I think because my life, or to me living and having eternal life kind of is so much physical, I think that's why I know I'll get bored, because there are only so many mountains I can climb and only so many planes I can jump out of before I'm like, all right, yeah, okay, I'm done. I mean, there are other things to do, you know, community, connection, but to me, as we said in the beginning, ego is a thing. So to me, bonding with people who I have to watch die constantly, that doesn't sound like very much fun. So,
It's interesting. To live that long would be akin to a demigod. And through the demigod's eyes, I guess watching life and death would just be a part of it, and you'll be at peace with it. It's like a great observer. You're observing the flow of the world, and then you're at peace with that.
and I didn't even know what the Deus here meant. And apparently,
Is it Deus or
mean-
Deus?
whatever it is, it means God. So I moved from Homo sapiens to Homo gods. And I guess more interesting concepts will come up the more that I read. But yeah, I think that was it for today's debate.
Yes.
Discussion.
This is usually our morning conversations, what they usually look like. Just exploring concepts.
Yeah, that's what we have morning coffee too. So,
Yeah.
So he made coffee for today's session.
So thanks for joining us in this discussion about death, religion, and life.
I would like to come to these episodes more prepared, but he's trying for a more natural format. So we'll see which one survives as we film more content. So, yeah.
Thanks for watching, and have an awesome day.
Bye.